Hey everybody, and welcome to another exciting, amazing, and miraculous episode of Finding Peaks. Your host, President, Founder, and Chief Executive Officer, Chris Burns, formerly known as Recovery Cheerleader. I am joined today by a great friend of mine, colleague, professional, recovery human, Sparkle Lindsay. So grateful to have you, Sparkle.
How you doing? It's good to be here.
Doing so good. And you guys would probably be shocked to learn that Sparkle and I have just been sitting here shooting the stuff for the last 30 minutes. We haven't even been able to get the show going. But I cannot wait to highlight for the viewers where Sparkle was, where she's at today, and where she's going. I think it's a very powerful story of a lot of one days at a time. And she's a Peaks alumni. We're in our 10th year, celebrating our 10-year anniversary, and Sparkle just celebrated 5 years in long-term recovery. I mean, I was just saying, she's been in recovery half as long as we've been in business.
Right.
You know,
right.
Just really, really cool to have you here. So thank you for joining us today, my friend.
Thank you for having me, and I do think they probably think we talked longer than we should have.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I've had a couple guests who are like, man, they just don't shut up.
Yeah.
For sure. What I wanted to highlight, 5 years ago in Peaks Recovery, you know, the picture was a lot different. We were extended care. We've always been gender specific, but I just kind of wanted you to highlight for the viewers, you know, what was it like? Where were you at? What was it like kind of surrendering? We talked a little bit about that before, and making a commitment to walk through a wildly big, authentic, and robust recovery process.
You know, for me, being the oldest of five, I mean, obviously, I have 3 brothers and a sister. I love them dearly. And all of us have this past of being athletes, and we all have full ride scholarships to play a sport. And we all played those sports. We all have degrees. And so being the oldest, they really looked up to me, you know, during that time. So pride was a lot of what was in my way. I talk a lot about, you know, in a lot of my YouTube videos, being the fixer. And I really realized later on in my recovery how intense being the fixer was to myself, because I was fixing everybody else but me. So this journey, you know, for me really started from realizing that I just couldn't do it by myself. I couldn't do it by myself. I thought I could. I tried multiple ways to get sober. I kept secrets so that I wouldn't tell people what was wrong, because I was afraid of what people would think of me, especially me being this high intense executive, being a part of such a great family, not even really looking like I even was a drinker or anything like that, and just always holding myself to this standard, this OCD, this perfection thing that I later on found out some of my whys to my usage, you know, and I just didn't, you know, I really was like, I don't need treatment. I can handle it. I'm okay. You don't worry about me. I got you. You know, that whole, I want to help everybody else. Yep. But in all reality, I was distracting myself from myself, right? And then before you know it, I mean, there was just these moments where I was battling a form of chemo because I was diagnosed with lupus, been diagnosed with 5 autoimmune conditions. And at one point I was giving myself shots of tequila and taking shots of chemo to make it. And I was like, either way you could die. So you're doing them both.
Yeah.
And I was just really sick. And for me, so many different things happened, right? I ended up in jail a few times. I had an employee kill himself in front of me. And that, I spiraled. And then after all of that, when I thought I was gonna be let go, I was brought into the office and promoted to 125K. And I just remember sitting in the room that day, because I thought I was going to get fired.
Like, it's not going well.
Take a few shooters and I'm going to
we'll just get out of here.
And I looked and the guy's like, turn it over, you know, and I'm like, why do these people look happy, you know? Turned it over, and they said 125K. And everything got quiet. All these people were around me, and they thought I was going to be ecstatic. And I started thinking in my head, I said, well, this could cover my addiction for real. I could,
We're good now.
we'll be all right. We're good, you know? And then I started thinking, like, I've been telling these people that I haven't been feeling well for a long time. And they haven't really been listening. But the numbers were blowing up. And I just said, you know what? I think I'm going to turn it down. And I did. You see how I'm doing my hand? I'm still doing that, right?
Yeah, it's like.
And they're looking at me like, what? And I said, you know, nothing is fun when you feel like you're in a room yelling as loud as you can to a bunch of people and no one's listening. I said, and if I take this money, I'm going to die. I said, and it may not mean that much to you because obviously I'm replaceable. I said, but no amount of money is worth my life. So, of course, I get up, and I'm like, yeah, you know, I did good. Forgot what door I came through, so that was fun. I'm like this. They're like the right one. And I'm getting a little tipsy because I took shooters before I went in there. And I'm like, oh. So I get to the car, and I'm like, what am I going to do? Well, let's just go to Black Hawk, and let's just spend money, end up in jail. So I end up in jail.
That same night?
Same night, end up in jail. And I just remember sitting there, and this voice came to me, and it said, no one's coming. No one's coming. And I was like, I can't remember one number. I could not remember one number. It didn't matter. We're talking about someone with a photographic memory, okay? I could not remember, is it 720 or 3719? I could only remember the area codes, but not the numbers. No one's coming. And I sat there and I just asked myself, what do you want out of your life? What are you doing? And so I actually was booked in there, and I got an opportunity to see how it was to try to get out, try to get numbers, all of the above. And I started noticing some of the women in there that I wanted to help. And it was crazy because they thought I was a plant. And I remember going back into the room and being like, they're telling me I don't even fit here. Do you get what I mean? Like, I actually was there, but I didn't fit.
Yeah.
So I got out, and I just remember my ex told me, if you go get help, you can't come back here. I'll never forget it. And so for a week and a half, I sat there thinking about, should I go to treatment? Should I not? Should I go to treatment? Should I not? And one night, 3 a.m, I threw everything out of my car, jumped in the car, and made it to my grandparents' house. And I knocked on the door, and I said, I'm ready. And I ended up, because my aunt at the time, I said, my Aunt Benita, she said she had talked to you and was like, I don't know what's going to go on with my niece, but she needs some help. So I ended up at Parker Valley Hope. And Parker Valley Hope is where me and her had this conversation. It was almost an argument. I was like, listen, there are people who need my help out there. And there are people who need me to help them. And she said, why don't you just stay in your lane? And I said, listen, my lane is their lane. Yeah. Okay, this is 30 days in, lane. Right? So I said, people need to know. And she said, Sparkle it. Stay in your lane. Right? And I was fighting that. And then 30 days went by, and I started feeling really good. And then I got sick with pneumonia. And I was like, well, I probably missed my time to go to Peaks Recovery. And since I'm sick and it's been 30 days, I'm sure I'll be good, you know. And
just do Smile P or something. And
I'm talking about it like, you know, I have plans to start a new career now, and I don't need another treatment center. This is people just thinking I need help, you know? And I'll never forget it. I did my hanging the cup ceremony, and they had a speech, you know, you got to give a speech, and I had already made plans to go camping
Oh my
with
goodness.
my ex, and as soon as I was leaving, we were about to go have some fun, okay? So I'm sitting there, I will cherish this moment. And I was doing all these things, and people were like, she's gonna make it. You know, they were feeling it. And I got so close to the door, right? I'm close to the door, and I got my bags, and I'm like, I'm home free, right? And I get out, and all of a sudden, I look over at my ex, and I look over, and I hear, are you Sparkle?
Oh my goodness.
And I was like, what? Yeah. Peak's employee with the big van,
Came
says,
to get you.
oh, your auntie took the luxury of making sure we could pick you up for your next treatment. I go,
I never heard
"Oh,
that one.
okay. I look over, and then I look at her, and I look at him. Okay. And I got on the van. So the drive there is just like, I'm like, how long am I supposed to be here? And then I'm thinking, I don't have any money. You know, I'm thinking in my head, I'm like, and my Aunt Benita, you know, I'm like, what a brat.
Yeah.
And then when I talked to her, she was like, well, I know myself. She said, so what do you want me to do?
Right.
And I was like, thank you. So I get there and I'm fighting it for at least a month. I'm fighting it. I'm like, I think I'm good. I don't need to. I walk in the building and I'm like, wow, this atmosphere is so relaxing. And then I was like, and it's so quiet. And I was like, this kind of worries me because there's not anybody yelling my name or needing me or anything like this. I don't know, maybe this actually might work. You know, that thought like maybe this was a good decision, but
You're well
I
here.
was scared, you know what I mean? And so I walked in, and you know, the first person I meet, my case manager, Danny DeBoer, and Danny was so nice. You know, she gave me a hug and everything else, and then I got right into talking about my career and how I have to leave after this. I'm probably only going to need about 30 more days. I've already been killing it in the other spot. I'm making
You'll get
it
my
happen.
record shortly.
Yeah, I'm a winner. Here's the resume. Whatever you need. Okay, and she's like, okay, well, if you could just come in. I said, well, you know, I want to make a few calls before. And then she's like, you can't have your phone. And I was like, but there's people who need me to make things happen. So, and she's like, I understand. I said, I had to go do this. I had to go do that. I had to go do this. And then she's like, oh, okay. So you were kind of like the doormat.
Oof.
And I was like, come again? And right there, as quiet as it's kept, that comment right there changed my life forever. It intrigued me to realize there's something more to this. And so for a minute, I stood in her office and I was like, I don't really know if I want to be a part of this.
Yeah.
And we ended up being the best of friends all through my 5 years, even after. And she checks on me every day, checks on me daily just to make sure I'm okay and I'm on the same, you know, on that same road. And also with running my own business, not being that yes person. I can't be. And not being able to maintain that balance is what Peaks really brought for me. But Pete, you guys challenged us on so many different levels, on levels that gave us an opportunity to do something with the tools that were given while we were there. So it wasn't like, here's some tools when you leave. It was like, let's watch you put these tools into action before you leave. And so before I even hit the ground running or even left, or before we even got to the sober living phase, my thought process was on a holistic level, was on a mindset level that was like, I know my program, I know I feel safe, and I know I'm gonna be okay. And the reason why is because I know that I can always come back here if I need to. And no one's gonna say anything, you know, and I also was really excited when I heard that a lot of the staff was excited to see what I was going to do next with the materials and the tools that were given for me to be the best version of me, you know. And then there was my first therapist I ever had, Kelly Harrow, which was another one that was involved in a lot of my family stuff. So she was that third party that was working with us as a family so that we could teach our families recovery, but then they could understand my recovery at the same time and the support that was needed for all of us. And so that session was pretty intense, and I would say that was the first time I had cried in 13 years.
Wow.
And when that happened, I went into almost stroke mode, and ended up in the hospital because I hadn't cried in so long. And Kelly was there with me every step of the way, all of you guys, because I was also battling a lot of, you know, conditions and everything. Comorbidity, right? So once that happened though, and I kept saying, I'm gonna go back. And then I just started letting it go. You know, I started letting it go, and I started focusing on me. And I started realizing that I couldn't give away something I didn't have to begin with. So how was I doing it for so long? And that wouldn't it be really cool to not do that anymore, right? So then I got on the table with Tammy Romano for somatic experience.
Love that.
And that's where we started focusing on the words, I trust my body. And my body started doing things it had never done before. I'm in remission from all 5 of my conditions. That stuck with me forever as well. So you had the therapy going on over here. We were doing a lot of working out and just mindset work. And then I started learning the gift of processing and being able to process the things I was talking about on a deeper level. And that's when I started to find me. I could say that the moment I found out or have found out who I am, everything has just moved the way it should. And it took the doormat conversations and somatic experience and the growth from the inside out to build who I've become. You know, and forever grateful, because the whole time I kept thinking all this access to me, there was so much accessible. I could do yoga, I could watch TV, I could eat good meals. Like, there was so many things that made me and helped me to learn how to take care of me. And with no judgment. Just to learn again, to just make your bed again, to create the routines again, to start to believe in yourself again. And I just knew I was with a great program. And then, you know, I even had that feeling of realizing, even after I left, I took this program very seriously. And some people didn't. But I was on scholarship. And my family, we didn't come from a lot of money. My dad always used to say, I'm rich in love, not in money. And so the whole time I was in treatment, I was like, how the heck am I going to pay for this? Every time something new would happen, I'd be like, oh God, that's another $100,000.
Oh my goodness.
And Chris, you walk in and you go, hey Sparks, and then you leave, and I'd be like, oh, okay, no, okay, okay, I'm all right. And then after a while, you guys were like, just work on you. We don't care. Use it to the best of your ability, let's go. And I'll never forget it. I tried to go back home.
Oh yeah.
And I got to the door of where I was at, and I remember my ex opened the door and handed me a beer. He said, there's more downstairs, where that came from. I remember being so scared. Look, threw the beer up the thing, ran to my car, and I went back came back.
I think you even described a time when you went to the grocery store.
Yeah. Everything was,
Yeah.
and I said, I'm not ready for this. I'm not ready. I'm not ready. They're handing me this. They're trying to do this for me. I said, I think it might be better if I stay in the sober living. And I had to ease myself into it, and I ended up really never going back to that house again. It ended up not being for me, you know, and even after I got out, the support from Peaks, the support from Sober Living, then the aftercare, right? Rachel from Peaks, just talked to her as well. She's like, oh my God, you're at 5 years, you know? All of you guys played such a huge role in my life, and I don't even think how much you realized it. Until like I started coming back, and you were like, she thinks she's doing all right now. You know, we hit 1 year, you hit 2 years, and you're like, okay, she's doing all right, you know? And then for you to get that call that's like, hey, Chris, I'm at 5 years today. You were like, wait, what?
How did that happen?
So it was a very interesting process for me. And I think not only interesting, it was just so humbling. And it was, I have so much gratitude from it. And I think even now, just every day, even having some Peaks people in some of my courses and hearing them speak, it reminds me of what I learned. Do you know what I mean? And so when they hear me speak, and then they're like, wait a minute.
It's Peaks thing.
And they're like, you went to Peaks, huh? I'm like, I did, you know? And it's a Peaks thing because of the way we talk about it, especially with the holistic piece. Being able to center and ground ourselves. Body scans, okay? I hated those at first.
And now you're all
It's
that.
like, y'all want me to be
Before we
quiet
start talking,
and
let's do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, no, Danny, I'm not doing it. You guys can do this on your own time. I'm not doing it. She's probably ready to kill me by the end. Probably a few of them.
Yeah, oh my goodness.
And then on top of that, like meditation. I remember like meditating for like 2 minutes, and then I'd open my eyes and I'd be like, oh, we're still meditating. Like I would forget. It's so hard, you know? So we did a lot of that, a lot of walks, a lot of working out, and just a lot of being in secluded areas to hear ourselves. See, the difference is the gift of being. And when you have nothing but silence, but to sit with yourself and figure out what you're actually doing, it all makes sense. It starts to come together. But oftentimes people don't get time to do that. And then when they do, it takes you back. You know, that you want to do something because you don't want to sit with it. And so the greatest part about being at Peaks is I was able to sit with it and feel comfortable because my surroundings were safe and comfortable. So then, and everybody else around me, even the people that I was in treatment with, they were processing and sitting with it too. So it's like we all were learning, you know, how to be. Yeah. And that right there was it's probably been one of the greatest gifts I've ever had, is being able to sit in silence and do nothing, you know,
it's really
enjoy
interesting.
that.
It's unique.
Yeah.
And that would have done nothing instead of body scan and sit in silence.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why. That'll be the pinnacle of the experience. But I think you really speak to something that I think is very near and dear to my heart, and that's important, I think, for the recovery process. And you talk about safety. But then to get to safety, we have to talk about things like settling. And to get to things like settling, we have to talk about environment.
Right.
And I've always said about Peaks, you know, the one thing you're going to experience here that you won't experience anywhere else, you can only feel, you can't see.
Yeah.
You can only feel. If you're talking about this place where we go into, and even though Peaks has evolved, it doesn't matter what you know. Yeah. But how much you care and the foot you're putting forward and walking with these people. And so I'm wondering today, as you work with, literally working with Peaks clients now, a lot of things have changed over the last 5 years, but what is a commonality with the Peaks clients that you work with that share your experience? Because I was sitting with another guy the other day in our alumni program, KJ, and he's like, it doesn't matter if someone was in Peaks 10 years ago, 4 years ago, 6 years ago, Sparkle 5 years ago, me 5 months ago, we sit down and we go, oh, it's a Peaks thing.
Yeah, because here's the thing, we lean in with our feelings. See, there's a lot of things that I talk about, and I say, because of what we've learned, whoever feels the most wins. Okay, and then I heard somebody else in a podcast say to me, Sparkle, I'm not hearing what you're saying, I'm feeling what you're saying. I said, because in order for us to actually consume what we have, you got to feel it to know. And oftentimes that's where we block, right? Well, that's not, that we're opened up with this safety piece, but we're also open because the therapist and the people we work with really challenge us to go deep and actually identify with the feelings, the whole process. How are you feeling today? What are we doing? People think that stuff is funny, but I ask myself how I'm feeling every day, every second of the hour, and check in with it. Because if I can identify with the power of my words through my feelings, others feel me too. And the difference is I learned that because I realized how much I was running from my feelings my whole life. And in all reality, when I started leaning in with how I felt first, people respected it better. And you hear this everywhere you go from people who come from peaks, people who have worked for peaks, people who have went to peaks. We speak, breathe, and feel. We feel our feelings, and that's what makes it different because that means we have a willingness to get deeper with ourselves every day, you know? And when you consistently do this, and you're consistently doing it in your aftercare and all of that stuff, it's a becoming of you. It's no longer a goal, it's an intent. It's an intention that becomes who you are, changes the mindset, and now you're just feeling, you know, and you're doing what we used to do when we were younger, that we shut down a long time ago. But
which was authentic.
Yeah, it was our authenticity. And then all of a sudden someone was like, you cry, I'm gonna give you something to cry about.
Yeah.
Right? So then, you know,
we're done.
You're done for a long time. Well, all of a sudden, here we are in the era of 2024, where feeling is what it should be. And where our younger people right now are doing all of that. And it's okay. It's okay. And we know emotions are temporary, not permanent. So feel away because the next one's coming.
I love that. See, it's this authenticity thing that actually, it's not required for recovery, but I think it's required to thrive in recovery.
Oh, absolutely.
In peaks, I think kind of pulls that, it's pulled it out of me over the years. I mean, you talk about somatic work. I started that 3.5 years ago. Oh my goodness. I forgot that you were doing that with Tammy.
Yes, I started somatic work with Tammy. And then obviously, you know, for 3.5 years, I've shifted into quantum healing with my father, Sparkle Lindsay. So you talk about the gift of energy. It's a crazy thing, you know, and just becoming one with yourself from within, because there's layers to this feelings thing, right? There's layers of surrender, there's layers of empathy, there's layers of gratitude as you grow in your recovery, right? It's like you're always gonna go through this cycle of the butterfly. Most of us think that when we're in the cocoon, it's the most uncomfortable time. Well, it's ascension. So when you're ascending, you're uncomfortable, right? But what you're doing is preparing yourself for the knowledge you need to transform.
Yeah.
And then, bam, here comes transformation.
Yeah.
And then here you go all over again. And it's a process that we have to learn and condition our minds to think. And before you know it, it's just a becoming of us. Feelings, empathy, all of it.
That becoming of us is so near and dear to what I do in the recovery. And I used to think it was just a recovery thing, but I almost think like the whole world can afford to be in recovery. And so I think it's this life thing.
Yes.
Is that if we fortify our experience with some nice edges and some good goals, they speak to something that has to continue.
Yes.
And keep moving. It's not like, you know, today I'm feeling so connected with God, myself, and my fellow human that I can't get any more connected.
Yeah.
I'm fully connected. And that's what I love about the way that you speak to this recovery process, because it's like, I'll go back to that A, how good can life get? I mean,
and here's the thing, how good can life get, and then how not so great can it be too? Because when you're dealing with the fact that you can embrace the good and the not so great and realize it is what it is, it's a beautiful thing. Because most people think that when you mess up, it's a bad thing. Have you ever thought that when you mess up, it's a great thing? Because now lessons are transpiring, which means that you are growing, and therefore you got to mess up in order to grow. So why would we stop, right? And I always tell a lot of, you know, I tell my coaches as they're going through their programs, It's not about a using thing or a stop using thing. It's a living thing.
Yep.
How do you become a well-oiled machine, mind, body, and spirit, taking care of yourself first and illuminating your light to others so they see it? It starts with you because you are doing it for you. If you're doing it for everybody else but you, you've lost sight of the mission. And we have to remember that, even as helpers now, even as people who want to go out there and guide and give people the light, let them find their light, but show them your light by doing what you need to do in that action. Continue to feel, continue to be your authentic self, and step into your power, you know? And a lot of this comes from working with other people, but it also comes from seeking to understand and remaining curious about who you are.
Dude, that is so unique, and that's what I love. I love how you branched out and opened Sparkle LLC, is because like, if there could be an orientation at Peaks that we could like really, it would be that. It would be just take great care of yourself and you'll be exceptional.
Yeah.
You're just going to be exceptional. You're going to thrive, and there's greatness written all over you. But you have to invest.
Yes.
Every day.
Every day. And the thing is that the investment becomes so fun because you fall in love with yourself all over again.
Yeah.
And this is what I say. I challenge you, if you haven't fell in love with yourself, well, do so. Take yourself out on dates. Do things. Make yourself laugh. I mean, I got kicked out of a few pottery.
I bet you did.
I got kicked out of a few pottery classes because I'm not an artist.
Chuckling? Oh my gosh.
I told my dad the pottery piece. He said, well, how do you feel? I said, well, I guess it was just the date that counted, but they said I don't really have to come back if I don't want to.
So good. We loved having you.
We loved it, but it's okay. Those parts I still, to this day, laugh at myself and love myself wholeheartedly for being able to spend time with me and embracing who I am so that I can teach people how to love me. Because now I'm starting to know what I want and how I want that done and what I want done in my life. It means that anybody else who comes my way, they need to know I know how to love me. And in order for you to be in my realm and me to be in yours, we have to teach each other how to love one another. And we got to know from within first, you know?
I really love your recovery process. It's very, it feels like a breath of fresh air. You know, it says we can, it doesn't say we can't. There's no life sentence to anything except for quality of life, improvements, opportunity, seeing ourselves clearly. It's really cool because you're able to move out within 5 years and do something that would have took 10 years ago, 20 years to do. Because you're anchoring into things that are so holistic, sustainable, and rooted in value from a foundational recovery perspective. People feel that.
Yes, and they also feel really good with self-reflection. See, everything that I've ever done, one thing Peaks brought to me was the honesty and integrity with myself. And I had to start getting real with me in order to figure out what needed to happen next. And oftentimes we don't want to do that. We want to distract ourselves, you know, but after a while, when you start to learn the becoming of self-reflection, you can't help but speak that way. So people respect that because you're not talking about them, you're talking about you. And when they realize that you have the audacity to talk about the things you need to do better, it changes the way people look at things. And it also changes the way you look at things. It keeps you more mindful. It keeps you empathetic. It keeps you humble. And it also, it consistently challenges you to surrender. And that part right there is what people forget. Your surrender never stops. Once you say, I need help, you always need help. And you should never be afraid to do that or ask for that, especially because the first time was the hardest. But once you continue saying, I need help, I need support, those people just start to show. And it's because they need help and support too. The people who are growing in this game right now and in this world, with recovery or not, just in this world, are people who actually say, hey, I need help.
I don't got this.
Right, and here it is. I even do kind of got it, but you know what? A second eye would be nice. Just tell me what you see. What's wrong with that? There's nothing wrong with us reaching out to one another and saying, hey, two heads are better than one. What do you see? We're in this together, and we're all sober warriors. When you're getting sober from whatever it is you're getting sober from, but when you're able to consistently surrender and ask people for help and keep moving, it gets stronger and stronger. And those, it's like a burning ball that's just gaining momentum. And before you know it, you're just locked in. And when you start to lock into how you feel, your mindset, and other people start to feel it, it's infectious. And that is, I would say, that is what I have seen in my career now with having my own business, right? Sparkle LLC, the light at the end of the tunnel. I have seen amazing coaches come from a program that I didn't even know what I was doing at first. I didn't know what my vision was. I just knew I needed to create it. And 850 coaches later, I just watched them grow. I watched them.
850
Yeah.
later?
Yeah.
Spark.
I watched them grow, and I watched them get it, and I watched them say, I want to be better for me. And I tell them, it starts with you, it ends with you. And you can't give away something you don't have. So, got to be as strong as you can, and you got to be as willing to make mistakes as you can, and be willing to say, I need help. And then on top of that, you got to be willing to say, if I'm not okay, then I don't need to work with people right now. I need to stick with me. And all of this came from just, for me, a vision. And I feel like I got the C-CAR curriculum, and I really just started trying to make it my own, and then started bringing in other things to make it mix and make it work. And next thing you know, I've come up with a university and an academy for coaches where they can be great coaches, they can grow, they have a place to call home, and they can continue to grow into the versions they want to be. Not all of them are going to be coaches for the rest of their life. What do their advancement plans look like? Where do they need to go? And if they have a place to call home, they'll continue to grow because they have a place, just like I do here at Peaks, that knows who I am and who values me for who I am. And when you know you have a place like that, there's nothing that stops you.
When you said 850, I think to myself, like, that just one human, one person who said, you know what, I'll do this thing. It's uphill both ways.
Yeah.
It's uphill both ways. And I remember, people that have been there know. But I remember just being able to sit in these groups with you, and I remember the time when you just let go and you get to experience with these people that are like your family, that have been around for 360 hours of group with you. And it's these special moments that we get to share as people in recovery.
Yeah.
Where we're all just okay.
Yeah.
Together. And it's one of the most beautiful things because I never thought it was possible.
Well, and it's crazy too, because when you leave and you see someone you were in recovery with, some of the people that I was in recovery with, I still talk to today. They are still watching the program. They're trying to be a part of the program. They're like, Sparkle, how you doing? And they're looking great. You know what I mean? And even some of those people that may have left and things didn't go as well, they reached out to me. Yeah. That made me feel good because they didn't feel like, I can't tell nobody. They said, nah, that's a Peak sister right there. I could call her and she got my back regardless, because I don't care. It's a non-judgmental approach for anybody who's going through anything. And I think a big portion of where we have went wrong, but we're starting to get better, is the judgmental piece. And being a recovery coach for 4.5 years, right? And a facilitator and a motivational keynote speaker and author, right? And then trying to do something different for those, especially now that are coming up and people are more into their feelings and everything else. And I've become very, very much more spiritual. It has just been wonderful watching people just soak up all of the goodness. And I can tell you now, I starting this business, I really didn't have much of anything. I started at Peaks, not Peaks Recovery, but Serenity Recovery Connection, which was Springs Recovery Connection. And I had some great mentors there. Kathy Plush, Don Gillum, my best friend, Chastity Lemiel, and we went for it. We went for it, and it was one of the best places I could have ever been, because you mentioned it, and you said, hey, Sparks, I think you should check this out. And I remember coming in gung-ho, and there was, I mean, we created so many different things there that never existed. The justice settings, the emergency rooms. Like, by the end, I was like, this is amazing. And then I remember it, COVID. I had an interview that ended up with 28,000 views. And Kathy Plush said to me, Sparkle, you need to speak. She said, you need to speak. And I said, you think? She said, I think. And I remember telling her, hey, I think that I'm gonna go on ahead and take off. I'm gonna leave, and I just see something more for me. And she said, hey, if it's easy, take off. She said, I built this place for this to be a springboard for you to catapult into what's next. Sure enough, I got out there, Chris, and I was like, oh no, can I come back? This is kind of hard, you know, and got my first books out there, Being a Better Me for Me, and it's on Amazon, and then
Being a Better Me for Me, Amazon.
Yeah, Being a Better Me for Me, the book and the workbook. I turned it into a master class, and then I started getting asked to speak more, and I said, okay, I think I got something, but I had been facilitating, and I noticed that, like, a lot of the coaches that were with me, some of them weren't making it. And I was like, what? You know, I'm an HR executive for big box companies. I'm like, okay, we're gonna have to make some changes, because if the helper is not being helped, we got a problem. This isn't making sense. And so I said, you know what? I'm gonna make the first coaches hub, a place where coaches can be successful, coaches can get all the lectures, the speakers coming in to their courses, everything you can think of to shine. And this is where they rejuvenate themselves. This is where they call it. So internationally, you know, they jump into these classes, they get a chance to be state certified and stuff, but I also have other master classes and stuff and speakers coming in that they can see once every 2 weeks and just really be a part of my coach's corner. And it's starting to hit international and everything else. So it's been good to see that there's a bunch of coaches who can come together, communicate to each other, and just cry and be open and talk about their recovery and know they have a place that they can talk about it openly without judgment. So
yeah, I love what you did, and I love what Kathy did, and I love Springs Recovery, Serenity Recovery Connection. It's
the
amazing.
whole process.
But you reminded me of one of our core values, which is to disrupt the industry through quality of care.
Oh yeah.
We don't bring anybody on this show that sits in the status quo. You know, we bring leaders and entrepreneurs and visionaries and miracles, and we bring them in to tell the world that we can do better one day at a time together. Together.
And this is where people don't think about the fact that Tammy Ramato, I'll never forget it. I said, I always thought of that term, the strong black woman. It always made me feel a lot of pressure. And they always showed it on media like that. And we got to going, and she said, what would you call it if you could call it something? I said, well, I'm tired of people putting that cliche up there. I said, I'm a woman of many strengths. You hold yours, and I'll hold mine, and we'll walk across the finish line together. I said, everybody deserves an opportunity to be a part of their recovery process or their life. And if we allow people to do that and we walk with them, we don't interfere. We just guide, and they guide us, and we have what we call people walking together to be kind and empathetic and understanding and help each other grow, encourage each other, and enlighten each other. Step into your power together and go take what's yours. And when I say take it, you take what's yours because it's written, not because you got to take it from somebody else, because that's somebody else's stuff. But what's yours is for you. And if it's not for you, it's not going to be for you anyway. You know, so these things are, I mean, even the words that I've learned, that I've talked, I don't know, I often ask myself where they came from. Because when I was younger, I was like, I'm going to be a speaker. I don't know what I'm going to talk about. And now I can't stop. Yeah. And I feel like, you know, as my higher power channels through me and I speak from my heart, I will speak as much as I need to help people know they're not alone.
That's right.
and that people do care. And people care about, people care. And also that it's okay to care for yourself as well. It's not about caring for everybody else but you and you end up last. No, we can all cross this finish line together. So it's been very interesting. I find myself having a lot of transformation moments in the classes with coaches. And you can feel the coaches rising. You feel their vibration taking off. And it just feels like an army of people being kind and loving and disrupting things because of that. Not because they need to be mean or upset. It's because from the inside out they care. And you get enough of those people around.
You change the world.
You change the world, you know?
Yeah. I'm so grateful that I get to sit in recovery with you, because it's like this authentic perspective. Like, you know, we go into this world from 2020 to now, and things are all sorts of places.
Right.
And intense, but we know, being in recovery, like there's this mission and this vision and this opportunity.
Yes.
We get to thrive together. And I love what you said, because it's been one of the greatest gifts of my career. You know, when I started off 16 years ago, it was about what I knew and what you didn't have, and you needed to follow me. And you just said something that's so profound. It's like, I can remember a moment when I had a heavy phone in my hand and I didn't think anybody cared. And what you said is so profound, because all I wanted to know was that there was people willing to walk with me.
Yep. They didn't even, they didn't have to say, here, we're doing it this way. Because if they would have dragged me, I would have been like, leave me alone anyway. It was the fact that they said, how can I help you with your recovery today? How can I help you find a job today? How can I, just ask what you can do to help. You'd be surprised how many people will look at you and be like, wait, you want to help me?
Me?
And I'll tell you, as soon as you say, yeah, we're in this together, it's your journey. I can't do it for you, but I will walk with you. And I don't care what happens. I'm here. They immediately start to feel like, I can do this. And you watch people transform into something they never thought they could be, and they look back at you and realize that it was all them.
It's all there.
And that right there is like, I'm doing it, right? And then that for you as a coach or as a helper, or even for yourself looking probably at me, is this: they're doing it and they're okay. And they're gonna continue down that journey that they need to, because they have a routine. They remember how they were done. You know, it's like if you start and you're a coach and you start with a young team, and you guys start with the fundamentals, the basics, and you continue working and flowing, and everybody's starting to go, all of a sudden their layups start getting better. All of a sudden their jumpers start getting better. And then by the time they grow up together, and that's exactly how we did this in our Peaks recovery. And we did it as a team, and we still worked on our individual things, but everybody was still learning about themselves, which means that most of the people who leave Peaks, they have that mentality of team. That's why they're okay with coming back if they have to.
That we thing.
Yep, it's a we thing, not a you thing. You know what I mean? We had to learn how to get those interviews like, well, I had 100 points, you know. It's a we thing. And after a while, that we thing, it's a bond that you will never, ever lose with someone who knew you on such a vulnerable level. And most teams that win the championship, they know each other vulnerably enough to block for each other or cover for each other, to the point where they're just a well-oiled machine. And that's really what recovery is about, and that's what it's about when you bring in your engagement of the community, you know?
You're hitting the player at the spot before they even move. It's a beautiful thing. Like, we know we're...
You know the dishes.
Exactly. Like, you know, when we started Peaks Recovery 10 years ago, and it was one of those things where it's like, hey, if we can come into the Colorado Springs community and help a couple people, that would be amazing. And I'm just, I think the right word for it is humbled, and then maybe secondly would be honored to sit with you today. And,
absolutely.
These experiences are just 24 hours at a time the capstone of my recovery existence, and the fact that we get to walk together and connect with family, community, and culture in this enriching process is not only a miracle, but very, very special.
Right.
The last question I wanted to ask you is, as we swing into this 10 years, is like, what does it mean to you to be a part of? Because you're a significant part of this 10-year anniversary, this celebration, this momentum forward with helping people that don't have the opportunity to help themselves. And you have a big part of that and a big presence in our community. And what does that mean for you personally and professionally?
You're going to make me cry again. I would say I am so proud of what I have accomplished in my life. I was in a real dark spot. And I would say that everybody that I've ever had in my corner, nobody ever gave up. And I think that the supports I had, the love I've had, the conversations I've had, the fun times I've had, like, it's crazy because I used to think about the things that went wrong or what I needed to fix. And when I hit 5 years, the only thing I could think about was everything that's going right. Then I think sometimes we get going and we're moving and grooving and we're helping and we're doing these things, but then after a while you stop. You know, every milestone, Kelly taught me that, you celebrate. And I remember looking outside the window and another voice came to me and it said, "Congratulations on your 5 years. You don't want to miss this." It told me to stay in the present moment. Stay in that present moment. Focus on what we have today. And allow the days to come to us as we may. And even since 5 years, I'm 5 years, 3 months sober, already. I have not, everything just is what it is. And I feel like even some of the things that used to drive me nuts, even about this business and just where to get started, I'm like, God, if it's your will, let it be done. Yeah. And he is doing it. And I think when you know that things are happening and they're written, you don't fight it, you just go with it. And I feel like there's so much more left to happen out here. And I feel like growing in my recovery, because 5 years is still pretty early. I would say that growing into myself and into my recovery, but into this new phase of living, it is so exciting. And the expansion and the way, the vividness. I mean, I'm just so grateful to be here and see what's probably been here the whole time, but I wasn't ready to receive it. And now that I'm here, I'm like, let's freaking go. Yeah. There's no like, I've worked through the past, and now I'm consistently working this thing, and I'm ready to go. And I just think for me, I'm grateful for it. And I know this, what my past was doesn't define me, but who I am right now is Sparkle Lindsay. I'm a woman in long-term recovery. That's the only thing I care about. The rest of the stuff is gonna happen, and then it's not. But one thing that's always going to change is me, as long as I believe in who I am and also continue to keep beautiful, wonderful supports around me. And I've noticed that every step of this company, every step of what I've been or who I am, there's always been somebody, my legs to the table. Obviously, that's my book coming out. There's been somebody from my legs to the table there to hold me up and realign me. And I'm okay with that. And I think that when you become that person who's okay with not criticism, but growing and learning, and you know that there's people around you who hold you in their hands and in their arms, there's power in numbers because of that. So I would tell you now, I feel very, very powerful from within, and I feel like stepping into my power is just starting to happen. And I also feel like this place for me, Peaks Recovery, it always has a place in my heart because I was a pretty tough person to crack. But right out the gates, it was like, we don't care if you come here or not. If you want to come here for yourself, we got you. But if not, then we don't. And I found that so astonishing that you guys just allowed people to recover when they wanted to. And so that's the part for me. And it didn't matter how long it may have taken. It was more like, what do we need to do to help Sparkle move forward? And it was always on an individual basis. And it always has been. And also the fact that you would come in and have those stories or those conversations with us in the mornings when we have to have our groups, and I'd hear a story from it. And each time I became more empowered by hearing that and realizing like this journey is just getting started. And so even now, when I get to be here with this 10-year anniversary, it's so surreal because I see people coming up. I see you guys still doing very well. I see so much movement and churn, and it just feels good to know you guys are still standing. And I think first and foremost, I am honored to even be on this show as well, because it surprises you, you know, that time. And I didn't realize that you guys were at 10 years either. So when my aunt said, Sparks, this is pretty big, I was like, of course it's huge. I was like, this is huge. You know, you think about Jason's and Lauren's and just all of these people, and they're still around and still seeing them, and then watching that sparkle in their eyes where they see me and they're like, she's still doing okay. You know what I mean? And all of it is just like bringing back family, you know? So I say for me, this is the most surreal, and it's also just, it's just one of the greatest blessings to know that you're sitting here in a place where you were at your worst, but you're also in a place where you are right where you need to be. And it's still right here with Peaks Recovery, right? Still here.
Now, you know, worst, best, where you need to be. It's full circle, and it's just so amazing to be able to walk with you on this journey. And I talk to people a lot in early recovery, and we'll leave people with this. It's like we have this opportunity, and we know very near and dear to our hearts that it is an opportunity right in front of us every day. Is this, we're going to change the world one day at a time. When I line up, right, like, so I do jiu-jitsu. I'm not very good, but I've been doing it 16 months. But when I line up across somebody, regardless of what training they put in, you haven't sat with the people and walked with the humans in the way that I have over the last 16 years. And that's a problem.
Right.
A good problem.
Right.
You know? And so I'm grateful to know you as a sister, a friend, a colleague, a professional, and somebody that's rocking and changing this world one day at a time, my friend. Sparkle Lindsay, LLC. What is your website?
SparkleLindsay.com.
SparkleLindsay.com. Check her out. Check out all her stuff. She's speaking all over the place. She's putting out a lot of positive information that's taking off like a wildfire.
Thank you.
Sparkle, thank you so much.
I appreciate you.
We love you.
I'd say this, I'm pretty honored. I think we still got a whole lot of work to do out there. So we'll keep taking it one day at a time, one step at a time in the present moment, and we won't look back.
That's right. Thank you so much. Until next time, peace.